South African Bitcoin reserve. Should we, as a country, consider it? That is going to be the topic of this morning's video. And we're going to try and come to a conclusion whether it is a good idea as a country to have a Bitcoin strategic reserve or not. Now, before we do that, let's have a quick look at the markets. As we can see, it is February 2025. We've got Bitcoin trading at just over 1.8 million Rand per coin, trading here on Altcoin Trader at 1814 and change. Let's have a look at the international markets. We can see Bitcoin is still ranging between 96 and 97,000 US dollars. Now, the question is, should South Africa, should the US, should any country, in fact, consider Bitcoin as a national strategic reserve? We know in the States that a lot of people are poised to hear the announcement that the US has decided to keep Bitcoin as a national strategic reserve. But this is a bit of a tricky question because can you imagine on the day of that announcement how the Bitcoin price is going to absolutely pump? Don't you think the regulators, the governments, the authorities would be a lot smarter if they first bought the Bitcoin before making that announcement? To me, it's an absolute no-brainer. No one's going to make the announcement and then go and buy Bitcoin and buy it at a higher price. We know that these people in power, the regulators, the governments, come from very good business backgrounds, especially Donald Trump. So they are not going to make an announcement and then go and purchase. I personally believe they're going to purchase and then make the announcement. It just makes sense. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, we are going to tackle the question, should we as a country in South Africa consider Bitcoin? And if so, why Bitcoin as a strategic reserve? Let's have a look at a clip from our president and understand his thoughts on this issue.
Mr. President, one last question. Sorry, sir. Donald Trump grabbed headlines over the weekend launching a cryptocurrency meme coin. Can we expect to see a Ramaphosa coin? And what are your thoughts on the potential of the US adopting a Bitcoin strategic reserve? Could South Africa follow suit if the US were to pass such legislation?
Well, we are, and our financial institutions have been looking at this whole issue of cryptocurrency, and it's a reality that is descending on the world, and all countries, most countries have to look at it very carefully, and so are we. So no, you're not going to see a Ramaphosa Bitcoin or whatever. So I'm not that ambitious to be able to want to see my face on some coin.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so as you can see from that clip, not much commitment, but what we can see there is that the regulators, the president himself, is considering this, is aware of this, and it is questions that are being asked on the world stage. Now, more importantly, let's go to a clip and have a look at what the Reserve Bank governor thinks about South Africa having a Bitcoin strategic reserve and what he says on the world stage.
The cryptocurrency industry is set to thrive in the United States. That was a key takeaway from the only panel discussing cryptocurrencies inside the World Economic Forum behind me. Key figures from the industry painted a very positive outlook as regulatory change takes form underneath Donald Trump in his second presidency in the United States. Brian Armstrong, the founder of Coinbase, was positive about the potential of a Bitcoin reserve being adopted in the next 18 months, while South Africa's Reserve Bank governor was far more skeptical about the potential of a Bitcoin reserve and questioned whether nation states should even consider adopting Bitcoin as part of a national reserve.
Governor, see South Africa going towards a Bitcoin strategic reserve?
No, can't quite see.
Okay, so let's pause right there for a second. As we can see, the Reserve Bank governor comes straight out of the blocks saying, no, he can't see. Let's listen to his explanation.
To distinguish between the technology that underpins these assets and the assets themselves. As a regulator, we do not regulate technology, we regulate activity. So we are technology agnostic. So that's why I had said it's not for governments to decide which assets or which products the consumer should be using. So the technology is very useful. Give you the idea. We piloted a blockchain technology in our payment payment space with finality in central bank money, and we were able to settle transactions that we settled in a whole day in 46 seconds, 46 minutes. We were able to do that. So the technologies could be useful. And
let's just quickly pause there, because the takeaway here is that the South African government understands cryptocurrency. They understand the potential of cryptocurrency. An interesting point here was that industry leaders from South Africa, like Altcoin Trader, myself personally, I actually was invited to the Reserve Bank, and we sat and we watched the demonstration of how the government used a coin created by South Africa to settle between banks. And although it was rudimentary, it was very impressive. But just to reiterate, the takeaway here is that South Africa is actively looking and getting involved with cryptocurrency and blockchains, and that is a very promising sign. Let's continue to listen to this clip.
we would look at that, and I don't think that that is a problem. I would have a significant problem with a lobby that says governments should hold this asset or hold that asset without what the strategic intent of government is. Because you see, there is a history to gold. There was once a gold standard. Currencies were pegged to gold. But if we now say that, okay, Bitcoins, okay, what about platinum? What about coal? Why don't we hold strategic beef reserves or mutton reserves or apple reserves? Why Bitcoin? So it's a...
So the point that the governor is making here is that we can understand why a country would hold a gold reserve, because historically it's been done and currencies were at some stage backed by gold. But why Bitcoin as opposed to coal, as opposed to platinum? And he goes on to even reiterate further, as opposed to beef, mutton, or apple reserves. And that is the point of this video. We are trying to establish why South Africa should hold Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, or if we should actually even consider doing that. Let's listen further.
Public policy issue that we have got to be engaged in, and I would caution against the move then that would say there is an industry with a particular interest in a particular product, and we would like to impose it on society and say society must hold this as a reserve. I would have a fundamental problem.
So why?
So once again, he makes a very good point. You know, why would a certain industry try and impose a strategic reserve on the government? And we've got to caution against this, because if you were, for example, a cattle farmer, you might be very pro a beef reserve, as silly as that sounds. And if you were in the Bitcoin industry, you would be very pro a Bitcoin strategic reserve for the government, because it would have direct financial rewards for your industry. So, in my opinion, a very valid point. Why Bitcoin? And that is what we are trying to uncover. So let's listen further.
Bitcoin reserve and not beef reserves and mutton reserves. Anyone wants to comment on that?
Well, I think that, if you like Neil Ferguson is here, he has a great book on the ascent of money, and he's a historian. And so many things have been used as money over the years. I think it's pretty, this is still maybe a new idea, but I think it's clear at this point that, Bitcoin is a better form of money than gold. It is provably scarce, just like gold, but it's more portable and divisible. So you can actually use, it has higher utility, I would say. And it was the best performing asset of the last 10 years. And so.
Whoa. I think we have an answer. Let's forget about cryptocurrency. Let's forget about Bitcoin. Let's forget about apples, mutton, beef, coal, platinum. Let's forget about gold. Let's forget about stocks, bonds, commodities. Let's forget about all of these things and the debate that can come with each industry's idea of what would be a good reserve. Let's focus on what the best performing asset has been over the past 10 years. Whatever that is, the best performing asset, that's the one that we want. That should be the National Strategic Reserve. That just happens to be Bitcoin. I don't think there's anything more to say. That's it from me. I'm out.